Welcome to our first event, Catalyst Sustainability Goals, hosted by Cardano for Climate in collaboration with WADA, Catalyst Swarm, Catalyst School, Cardano, Climate Neutral Cardano, the Cardano and Catalyst communities, and most importantly, you. Next slide, please. Through Catalyst, the platform committed to generating the highest, is it actually moving? Yes, good. Through Catalyst, the platform committed to generating the highest levels of community innovation. Individuals from across the world are coming together to address humanity's greatest challenge. Our goal is to support all proposals and projects related to climate change action on Cardano, the blockchain that aims to be energy efficient and environmentally sustainable. Next slide, please. What began as a challenge has grown into a community, Cardano for Climate. The mission of Cardano is to make the world better, work better for all. Our goal is for Cardano to make the world work better for all people, animals, and the planet. Thank you very much. Okay, and with that, I am going to hand it over to Yoram.
Yeah, I'm reading it. I know, I'm reading it. I've thought about it long.
Oh, please make mute everyone. Yeah. So the agenda we will have now. Take you through the agenda. We'll have a few presentations. We'll start with Chris from Climate Neutral, which will present the amazing work they're doing in calculating the SPO and Cardano, Cardano basically carbon footprint. We'll go and then to see what's happening from a Catalyst perspective, and you'll see a research that Raz did from Sustainable WADA about sustainability in Fund 6, SDGs and in Fund 6 of the Catalyst that recently was completed. We'll go now then into Scott, which is a leader that I admire and is going to show his experience and basically how can we cooperate and do action, start action and grow them. Then there will be some action and surprise activities, and then we'll go into the breakout rooms. So we start with Chris. Please, sir. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Yoram, and thank you for letting me speak as the first speaker. I only joined the community last week, and I already got a snail and the first position here on your first event. I'm very grateful. Thank you for bringing everyone together, and I'm really looking forward to the keynote speaker to hear more about trees, maybe, and whatever he's going to talk about. So thank you very much. So my name is Christian. I am the stake pool operator for Shift Pool, and I'm also a member, our pool is also a member of the Climate Neutral Cardano group of stake pool operators. We are a Cardano community that is trying to make Cardano's blockchain green. Sorry, there's still someone having a microphone on? Or is that myself that I hear in the background? No, okay, right. Yeah, so our website is climateneutralcardano.org if you want to have a look, and Twitter account is there too, so if you want to check that out. And yes, if you can switch the slide, that'd be great. Thank you. So a bit of background on the Climate Neutral Cardano group is that, our mission is to make Cardano a climate neutral blockchain or better. We have had two pools that were really the founders of that group a few months ago, actually. I think it's probably 7 or 8 months ago now. CO2 pool, which is run by Stefan, and EcoPool, which is run by Matthias, both Germans, but living in different countries. And they started the concept and the website and the ADA for you. Now we have a certain pool membership with 10 active pools, and Actually, I think it's not 39 pools, but it's altogether 19 pools with a lot of people that are not necessarily pool operators who are participating in our activities. There are some basic rules if you want to be a member of our the group is that we are running on 100%, all our servers are running on 100% renewable energy. And we ask and we combine people to use some of their rewards, pool rewards, to donate to climate charities or actively use their rewards to make a difference to climate change. As I said, we already had, we have a website where you can find a lot of the information, including the greenhouse gas calculations that I will go through in the next 2 slides. And our current main project that we work on in partnership with the Cardano Foundation and a company called Veritree is the Cardano Forest, where we have basically helped to create or plant a forest, or collect donations that are meant to offset Cardano emissions, among other things. But it's also a very, very big initiative of our community to just show about that we care about the environment and the climate, and see if the community by itself actually can create and invest into such carbon drawdown projects. Currently that forest, that's okay. We'll jump to the next slide then. I'll just stay there. So we have done a while back, even before that forest was planted, we have started to try to calculate our carbon footprint. And really, this is not the total carbon footprint of the Cardano blockchain. However, we have just done basic calculations of what stake pools are using in terms of electricity and how much carbon emissions that would generate and how many trees we would need to plant in order to offset that. And you can see that here, and it's also, as I said, on the website, but if you go through from the top, we did this calculation first in September, and there were 2,842 stake pools running the Cardano blockchain. There is an average number of relays that is connected to each stake pool, and that's 3, and that basically makes it to 11,368 nodes that are running our blockchain. We have done some basic research on basically on average, each node uses about 100 watts. And if you then combine that, you come to a total power consumption of the Cardano blockchain pools, just the electricity, to 10,000 megawatt hours per year. And we know that approximately 30% of pools are running on renewables. That is based on at least 2 surveys that we and others have done. And of course, it's based on trust, but that's how we then calculated a slightly lower power consumption, not using the renewable energy, the pools running on renewable energy, which basically adds it up to a total CO2 emissions of pool operations to about 2,710 tons of CO2 per year. This is based on average emission factors that we looked up, which most of our pools are running in the EU and in the US. So this is not an absolute figure, but an estimation. Finally, we have had a look, so what can we do about all these emissions? And it might be that Scott corrects me on this, but we have found some references that basically an average tree, this is based, I think, on a birch tree, can capture up to 12.5 kilograms of CO2 per year. And that's over its lifetime of 80 years. And that meant that we have calculated if we wanted to offset all these emissions, we would need to plant about approximately 218,000 trees. And that would actually, offset the carbon emissions of server electricity consumption for these 80 years on average. We did a number more calculations. There's actually, if you go to the next slide, it's just an update So the number of pools on the blockchain have increased from 2,800 and something to 3,100 pools. So we just redid the calculation, and we basically now at 2,900 tons CO2 per year, and we would need to plant approximately 238,000 trees, which is a number that all these numbers actually were particularly calculated by a CO2 pool just down there in the credit section. Just wanted to mention him. He couldn't make it today, otherwise he would have presented this. We are not carbon accounting experts, but this is just some basic math and a bit of research to get there. The number of trees in here were used when the Cardano Foundation started its Cardano Forest challenge setting in September, and sort of gave us a little bit of a figure of how many trees did we not need to plant to make a difference. And the Cardano Forest, that's currently an ongoing project where people have, I think at the moment, donated about 470,000 trees, or 470,000 ADA, which will mean that there will be 470,000 trees planted. Means that we basically are going to have enough trees to offset at least the electricity consumption of the Cardano pool servers, if these trees are sticking around for long enough. And I'll go into that a little bit more in detail. Can you go to the next slide? So one thing that our group works on, I mean, we started the initial calculation, but you quite quickly find out that greenhouse gas accounting is not that easy. And it's not just a simple calculation, because there are too many factors going into it. Our carbon footprint is not just the server carbon emissions, server electricity consumption, but it's much more. So also general greenhouse gas accounting is usually done for companies which are in a building, in a set building, and they know how many people are working there. They know approximately what their heating consumption is and so forth. However, it's usually not so easily to do for a decentralized system, such as the Cardano blockchain, where we have 3,000 individuals running stake pools, and another 100,000 people or 1 million wallets that are using the blockchain by itself. So this is only a partial carbon footprint. And the challenges here really are that the current methodology is not really adapted to a decentralized system. We have only the current power consumption of 4 servers per pool calculated here. What is not included is the individual carbon emissions from stake pool operators, their home computers, their heating, their cooling, their driving around, anything they do for Cardano. I think I did actually some initial calculations, and the emissions for stake pools are probably at least 4 times that, because we have done that for our own stake pool, shift pool, just taking part of the total emissions, annual emissions of a person that we included into these calculations. There's also, what also is not included, the carbon emissions of the Cardano Foundation, of IOHK and other core Cardano institutions. Neither we have included the Cardano ecosystem, and obviously, actually, if you do carbon accounting, you have to really do that annually and see and reevaluate that with a growing system, which Cardano does. As you have seen with the previous calculations, just within a few months, you really increased your carbon footprint already. So what's really important here is that I think we have to bring some researchers in here to help with the greenhouse gas accounting. They have to define and establish the scope of the Cardano emissions. Actually, what is Cardano really? What can we count in and what not? And that should be sort of really transparent, so you can compare to other institutions, to the general banking system and so forth. What is also really important, that it's not just done by someone internally like us, who are slightly biased towards Cardano, but we do ideally want an independent analysis of this and an independent audit, and there are organizations that are better suited to do that, and then you can trust the result as well. And it's really important that we have verified emissions to prevent any greenwashing, and we can build projects that are really important and counting in the future as well. If you go to the next slide. So that's the last slide. I didn't want to go too long. So we're currently working towards determining the Cardano carbon footprint by partnering with independent specialists and do the greenhouse gas accounting with some more support. We do what we can to minimize emissions already now from the outset, because while we are calculating, we can already do everything we can to reduce energy consumption. And for example, running on renewable energy is one thing. Reducing your energy consumption of servers and at home obviously is a key thing at all. And then if you can't reduce it any further, then you want to go towards offsetting. But that's just the last method. But we have started a Cardano forest, and we would be grateful. I think it's on the Cardano for Climate website as well, that people if they want to donate to the Cardano forest, please do so. Because we really need every tree we can get. Obviously, we should also protect the existing trees that are out there, and Scott will talk about that. But Cardano, I think the Cardano forest is a great project to bring tree planting to the Cardano blockchain. And what I haven't gone into detail here is that the Cardano forest actually brings an innovation step to this tree planting here, because a big problem with tree planting is that you don't know how many trees have been planted for how many donations. And it's so-called double planting, for example, that existing trees are used to collect more and more donations, but not for planting new trees. And what's happening here with the Cardano forest, that Veritree, the company that has established the technology, is basically logging each tree planted and including the metadata on the blockchain. That means we will have information about where these trees are planted, what kind of trees are planted, when they were planted, and whether or not they're still there in the future, which is really, really important for worldwide carbon emissions offsetting. And there are a number of scientific studies that are saying that we can plant up to 1 trillion extra trees on this planet. And we have another 3 trillion trees on this earth that still have to be protected. And currently that is done by a lot of really great NGOs, but often they are not logging this tree planting, and it's very hard to trace that these trees are still there in a year, in 2 years, and so forth, or if they are locked and so forth for other purposes. So that's really an add-on for this project, the Cardano Forest. Yeah. So we work together in a community with everyone, including the Cardano for Climate and Catalyst proposals, a Catalyst community, to make things happen. And we have a Catalyst proposal that we are hopefully submitting this week. We will try, where we are asking for the community to help us with funding for independent specialist analysis of greenhouse gas accounting, and some more visibility on which state pools are using renewable energy and which ones are not yet doing so. So I'd like to thank the Cardano for Climate group here for inviting us, and please get in touch if you have any questions and want to work together. Our details are down there at the slide. Thank you. That's it, really. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. Very, very interesting. I mean, this is a question that comes always, right? I mean, when we speak about blockchain, yeah, it's not, it's making a lot of green issues, and it's not ecological. So it's creating this transparency in collaboration with the foundation and the SPOs. It's really great to start creating transparency. And as you said, there is way to go still. Definitely you are getting my support for this proposal, and hopefully for other. Thank you for that.
One last point that I think people always want to know is, again, it's Cardano versus Bitcoin in terms of energy consumption. Cardano uses 10,000 times less electricity per transaction. And just as a comparison, because I did the math a little bit myself, so if you have 1 transaction on the Cardano blockchain, it's still not nothing, but you're using about 0.18 kilowatt hours, which means you have to boil your kettle for about 3 minutes. Whereas if you are doing a transaction, a single transaction on Bitcoin, that uses approximately 1,660 kilowatt hours, and you would have to boil your kettle 23 days for one transaction. So yes, we are trying to offset and do greenhouse gas accounting, but Cardano is a huge step forward compared to other proof of work blockchains. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Very important. Good. Raz, please, let's next slide, please, Jakob. Yeah, Raz, you are here with us. So Raz, for everyone who doesn't know, let me just check that he's here. He might have some emergency. Let me check. Oh, he should be here. Can't unmute myself. Can we check the unmute for us, please? So Raz is, I will start to speak about him until the end. I mean, he's very active in the community as part of the Sustainable ADA, he's part of AIM, part of supporting Cardano for Climate.
Now he should be unmuted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jakob, and thank you, Joram, for your your lovely introduction. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So my name's Razali. Really happy to be able to share with you all today some of the findings from our research. Joram and I and our team have been carrying out. We've been looking at Project Catalyst. Some of you may know it's the world's largest decentralized innovation fund, and we have been looking at whether or not the proposals of Fund 6, the funded proposals, connected to the UN SDGs. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with what are the UN SDGs, essentially there are 17 goals, interrelated goals that were drawn up by the United Nations back in 2015. With the view of completion in 2030. As of now, no country is on track to meet all 17 goals. So with that in mind, and with Project Catalyst seeking to enable and empower people from all over to solve problems in their locality and enable them to access the funds to do so, and to bring change makers together, it was only right for us to see, how exactly are these proposals linking to global goals, and how much in dollar terms is going to such proposals. Next slide, please. And so you should be able to see on your screen now. I just want to draw your attention to the right-hand side. Incredible figures coming out of our study. In actual fact, 96% of all funded proposals in Fund 6 are related to the SDGs. So if we were to break that down a bit further, 26% are directly related to SDGs, 70% indirectly. That's huge. If we were to just put to one side the Fund 7 challenge setting proposals, which are proposals that were drawn up by the community and voted for by the community, all of them, 100% of them, are related to the SDGs. 19% directly related and 81% indirectly related. So I'll just let that sink in a bit. Next slide, please. So when we say directly and indirectly related, when we look at a proposal, we see whether or not it aims to have an immediate impact on an SDG. And if not, if as a result of that proposal, there's a follow-on impact, that's when we would consider it an indirectly related proposal to the SDGs. Next slide, please. Having said that, that's really encouraging and inspiring to know that such a substantial amount of proposals are related to global goals. what we do need to know, though, is how exactly, right? How exactly are proposals impacting the SDGs across the KPIs, the key performance indicators? And for that, we need tools. And so very much like in the spirit of how Christian was sharing their team's approach to calculating, to giving the community and the global community the data to actually measure the impact of Cardano's blockchain, we need such tools to understand the impact of our funded proposals. And so in that spirit, our team are actually intending to submit a proposal this fund to bring such a tool to the community, and so keep your eyes open for that one. Next slide, please. So just to bring our attention back to the financing of these proposals, and although paid out in ADA in dollar terms. Okay, so you can see here how much was actually financed to the Fund 6 proposals and then the Fund 7 challenge setting proposals. And on the next slide, we'll actually see how much went to SDG related proposals. So if you could just go to the next slide, please. And incredible figures here. We have just over $3 million going to SDG related proposals. And if we look at just the Fund 7 challenge setting proposals, which are now live, we're actually currently in Fund 7, we have $5,475,000 available across the 21 categories related to the SDGs. Now, this is huge. This is immense. What we need to understand is, though, when we're sitting here thinking about the changes that need to be made, you may think, I have an idea, and I know there's a problem that I can solve, or a solution that's waiting to be implemented. How do I get it into the community? How do I get my ideas out there and connect to actual measurable goals? And so with that in mind, our team at Cardano AIM have actually developed the SDG Proposer tool. It's ready for use now, this Fund 7. It's accessible to all. You can see here the link at the bottom of the page. And I invite all of you here to tell your friends, your colleagues, anyone who has an idea, anyone who thinks that their project perhaps can connect to a goal, to a real world impact. Use this tool. It's very, very simple to use. With a few clicks, you'll be able to connect your ideas, your proposal to the SDGs and extract the relevant key performance indicators. And a few clicks later, you'll have that text ready to be pasted into any relevant documentation, for example, your idea scale proposal. And so just want to reiterate and echo what others have been saying here. We have an extraordinary community here. It's very, very inspiring, and I'm honored to be part of this movement. And I invite all of you out there who wish to be the change and to join this movement. Please do so. You're in the right place, and we are the ones we've been waiting for. And I just would like to hand over the floor now to the team, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. If you think, I mean, what bring all of us to Cardano and to this community and what we are doing every day, right? And more. And we're able actually to track each activities like this and see the impact it's doing on other people and so on. I think that would be amazing to show. And then we will show this result. But this was really amazing to see. Thank you for that, Raz. And I think also the information will be available to the community, right? Soon.
Yes, it will be. And if you join, I believe we have the links that will be available for everyone that downloads them. Yeah. Join our groups on Discord, on Twitter, on Telegram, and yeah, be part of this community. Before you know it, you'll probably find yourself part of a team making real change.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next, please. Good. Scott, you're here with us. I would really love to, I mean, Scott will speak, I mean, but it's again, as I mentioned before, it's someone that inspire me. I know Scott already for 4 years. I had an amazing honor to work in an organization he created. And it's incredible to see how action of one person did so much impact. That started from one person, basically. And yeah, so it's inspiration for me. And please, Scott, the floor is yours to share with us some of your thoughts, please.
Thanks very much, Yoram, for those kind words, and to everyone for being here and for inviting me to speak. And I'm just going to talk a bit about a new organisation that I founded earlier this year, in fact, called the Pond Foundation. And it's a Swiss registered foundation. And we have a program called My Carbon Zero. I just want to talk to you a little bit about that. But before I get there, I want to just give the background on the logic behind it, the philosophy behind it. And for me, it's all about cooperation. And we exist to change the way the world acts on climate change. It's a really important thing to us. I just don't think we're doing enough, clearly, and I think everyone here probably feels that very deeply. And when we see things like the COP26, we see a lot of talking, not a lot of acting. It does get frustrating. So I want to explore, based on my experience with the previous organisation and the work I'm doing now, how we get to cooperation on climate change. So next slide, please. And really, for me, I feel climate change is a failure of cooperation. I mean, cooperation is about working together, acting together. So it's really it's a doing word. We have to act to do things together for the betterment of a project or for a better outcome. And we're not doing really well on that. We've got lots of people defecting, as it were. They're not cooperating. They're going off and doing things for their own benefit. And so we need to cooperate to keep pace with the changes that are happening in the world. And I think it's no coincidence that we're seeing climate change looming as an existential problem, because we just haven't been working together to deal with it. And so it's running away from us. So I think we've got to get back to cooperation with people all around the world to work out how to find a way forward on this pretty challenging issue. Next slide, please. And for me, this idea of change it's not about yelling at each other. A bit of yelling can help. It can get us. I speak from many years of standing between NGOs like Greenpeace and WWF and other big organisations beating up on companies. And I mediated a lot of disputes. I'll just talk about those in a second. And I think a little bit of yelling can help. It can raise tensions. It gets people aware. But if we're going to find our way forward, we've got to really find our way to cooperation, where we can actually put the yelling aside, put the shame and the judgment aside, and find a way forward. And human society is founded on cooperation. Every time I walk down the street in the morning, I'm depending on the cars coming by, cooperating with me and not running me over. Cooperation is really important to us. And we really haven't solved any issue in our lives or in the world without cooperation. And we're not doing so well on it. Next slide, please. And so I'm interested in transformation. But if we go to the next slide, just a little bit about the work that I did in the past. Yoram mentioned the other organisation that I'd set up called the Forest Trust. It's now called Earthworm Foundation, if anyone wants to have a look at what they do. But it was initially set up as the Tropical Forest Trust back in 1999. And the idea was to support businesses to be more environmentally and socially responsible. It came in the teeth of a very large NGO campaign across Europe. And they found that the garden furniture that was flooding European markets was coming from destroyed forests and human rights abuses in Cambodia, where the logs were then trucked across the border to Vietnam, mass-produced into furniture and sent to Europe. And the good work of an NGO, a British NGO called Global Witness, uncovered this. So there was large campaigns across Europe, and I set up the TFT, the Tropical Forest Trust. We later became the Forest Trust as we moved beyond the tropics, to help companies and NGOs and communities and governments and experts talk to each other and find a way forward, because yelling at each other, they just kept, they just dug in their heels and they didn't move. And I said, well, that's no good. We've got to move forward. And so getting people connected to each other and actually able to talk to each other was really important. From that, if we did that well enough, we found cooperation could emerge. And with cooperation, we could start seeing elements of change that eventually led to sector-wide transformations. And so that's why I say when I'm interested in transformation, a little bit of change here or there is really great, but we really need to pump up its tires and take it to scale. How to do that? Next slide, please. I'm not going to go into great details around these things, but I was privileged through my time in TFT to be involved in what I call the Big Seven. There was lots of other projects. Some of you may have heard, may remember back in 2010, Greenpeace did a campaign against Nestle where they looked at KitKat, and the palm oil that was being used to make the KitKats was coming from a company in Indonesia who was involved in deforestation and destroying orangutan habitat. And there was a famous 1-minute video. If you Google it, go to YouTube and search Nestle KitKat Greenpeace, you'll see this video where an office worker opens a KitKat and it's an orangutan's finger, and he bites it and blood comes out, and it's all, you know, because of the destruction of the forest. So that was the fourth of the Big Seven, but I mentioned the garden furniture campaign, where we basically managed to transform the wooden garden furniture sector into one that was using certified wood. We can talk about whether that's a good thing or not. I'm not sure certified wood is always a great thing, but there's a whole debate we could have around that. Well, let's leave that for now. But then we managed to transform forest management in the Congo Basin. In the Indonesian teak sector, the state-owned teak corporation carried around 4,000 semi-automatic weapons to protect the teak forests from the communities and regularly shot and killed them. We managed to get all those guns locked away in an arsenal by helping the state-owned corporation talk to the communities, find cooperation, find a way forward. Likewise with Nestle, we eventually got them in a room with Greenpeace, and they had a good old chat and they found a way forward. The company that supplied the palm oil to Greenpeace, to Nestle, that precipitated the campaign, was Golden Agri Resources, Indonesia's largest palm oil company. We got them, took a while, but we got them in a room with Greenpeace as well. Probably the biggest achievement was Asia Pulp and Paper. They'd been beaten up by Greenpeace and WWF for 20 years. And they basically put a hand in the face of the NGOs and said, we'll do what we like, thanks very much, and destroyed vast areas of Sumatran and Bornean rainforest to establish pulp and paper plantations. That campaign was going nowhere, but managed to get them in a room, get them talking, found cooperation, found a bit of connection, found cooperation. They started to change, and in the end, they pulled the bulldozers out of 2 million hectares of forest. And lastly, Wilmar, the world's largest palm oil company, in 2013, we supported them to negotiate with another NGO and come up with the most far-reaching no deforestation and no exploitation policy. And that was a 2-year period of work. So what I learned from that was that we can get people connected if we find a way of talking to each other, respectful of the fact that they're human beings. They're not necessarily evil. They may be doing things that have bad consequences, but we need to support them to see that and to go beyond it. And if we can get to large-scale transformation of entire industries. Go, next slide, please. So yes, helping people find a path to cooperation was the magic that unlocked the opportunity for change and transformation. And it's a really key important point. Everyone keeps yelling about, we've got to change, we've got to change. And this is, of course, correct. But it's the path to that change, which I think we sometimes lose track of. And we think that if we, just that we're right and they're wrong, well, that tends to polarize people. It tends to get them going in the opposite direction. So helping them come together to talk in a common language around a common problem, to cooperate, seems to me, from my experience, to be the magic that helped us move forward. Next slide, please. And I realize that we have zero chance of finding a way forward on big complex problems like climate change if we don't cooperate. Next slide, please. And so we need a different way. We need to find a way to help people find that initial connection. Because when you're firing rockets at each other and you're telling each other that you're evil and you're bad and there's lathering judgment on people, we don't find connection. We find war. And in the middle of wars, we get wastelands, right? So we don't want wastelands. There's been so much nature damaged because people fight. I understand the need to raise these issues. We need that tension, but we need to find a way of breaking through to cooperation. And the path to that is connection to themselves, to nature, and to each other. Next slide, please. And to make that connection, we need trust. Cooperation needs relationship, and relationship needs trust. And so I wanted to share all that background to let you know that I've come to this conclusion, that it shouldn't be rocket science, but we don't see it emerge very often. And my experience is this is where Cardano can come in to help move the needle on climate change, because it can help us build trust. So next slide, please. And my experience with all of these processes, when we were just stuck in dark rooms where, you know, in the boardrooms of companies and NGOs were hanging off their building, and we actually ended up getting the NGOs inside to talk, was that these talks, particularly on complex and very uncertain issues, we need data, and we need to be able to trust the data. And Christian was talking about the number of trees that are planted. Yeah, we planted 10,000 trees. Yes, but 9,999 of them died within 3 months of planting. But you never hear that story. But when that story comes out, it breeds cynicism. And getting this trusted data has always been a problem. You know, when I started back in 1999, we didn't have access to satellite imagery like we do today. It was there, but you had to pay a lot of money for it. And you couldn't interrogate it. You couldn't look for things in an easy way. This has come along so much. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Is it stuck? Oh, there we go. And so I think there might have been one slide before that. I can't remember. If it's possible just to click back. Yeah. So the problem
Somehow
we
my
face
internet was a bit too slow. I don't know.
No worries. Thanks, Jacob. Good on you, mate. Yeah. So what's happening is actually, I think there might have been one slide before that as well. No, sorry, you're right. So go to the next one. Yeah, we're back on track. Next slide, please.
Okay. So
got it. Yeah, I just wanted to check. I wanted to check we had it all.
Yeah,
so what's happened is the world's become cynical, and this is breeding inaction. This is why we're not getting people investing. I mean, it's fantastic, you know, what Raz presented, to see all of that, those projects coming through, and the investment that Cardano is making and all these things. But overall, you know, the investment that we're seeing that needs to be put towards climate action is just such a drop in the ocean. And part of that is because the world has become cynical. And we need individuals to take climate action. And, you know, I love the rallying call of the group is that, you know, we can't wait for governments, right? This is very much my rallying call. And but if I do take climate action, if I do give money to a tree planting project or a soil carbon project, or I take some action on climate, I want to make sure that it counts. And I know that if I'm misled, if I give X dollars to a tree planting project and I found that the trees all died, or that they weren't in fact planted, I probably won't do that again. And there's been so much greenwashing over so many years that no one knows who to trust anymore. And I think this is a huge problem for climate action, for credible climate action. There are good projects out there, but they're struggling to get people to believe them because there's been so many cases of bad projects undermining the trust and credibility of the good projects. Next slide, please, Jacob. And so this is why we set up My Carbon Zero. So the idea of My Carbon Zero is to inspire individuals and businesses to take action on climate change, to give them a path to do so, that they can know that their action counts. That if they do it, if they give this money, it will lead to tree planting. It will lead to forests, not just tree planting, because the trees will survive, for example. It will lead to better agricultural practices. So how we go about this is we've worked out a very simple way, and some of you probably have seen all these carbon calculators that exist on the internet. I usually find them quite complex, but I realized that if I just took the average per capita carbon emissions for each year that I lived in a certain country, I could just add all those up. And, you know, if I felt I wasn't average, I could bump it up a bit. If I felt I was below average because, for example, I became vegetarian, I became vegan and now vegetarian, that would reduce my emissions. And so we can work out pretty simply. If people go to the My Carbon Zero website, mycarbonzero.org, there's a little calculator there. In about 5 minutes, you can have your lifetime carbon balance emailed to you. And you'll have your number. So what are you going to do with that number? So people often talk about, well, what about this year's emissions? I'm like, well, hold on. We've got a whole pile of carbon emissions that are floating around in the atmosphere since I was born that's contributing to climate change as an individual or as a business, since inception as a business. So we work out using the greenhouse gas protocol and these more complex methods for companies, what your lifetime carbon balance is as an individual or as a company. And then we help you take action to deal with it. So what does that action look like? Next slide, please, Jacob. And we call them RRRI actions, and we try to make it simple. So I'm not sure that's an easy acronym to say, but basically the first R is to help you reduce your emissions. And I often think about a bathtub full of water. Imagine a bathtub full of water. If we get the top of the bath is 450 parts per million. If we get overflowing of that, we're going to have trouble, right? Then we're going to get up to 2 and more degrees of warming. And that's a crisis. We're already at 419, I think, and accelerating towards 450. So we've all got a tap that's putting water into that bath. We're all emitting carbon up into the atmosphere. So what we can do is we can reduce that tap. We can turn it down, for example, by traveling less, by using renewable energy, by looking at our food waste, by eating less meat. There's a whole range of things we can do to turn our tap down. We can never turn it off. Every day we emit carbon, but we can turn it down. And that's what we talk about with R1, the first R, reduce your emissions. The second one is to help other people reduce their emissions. We don't like offsetting. There's a whole range of reasons. We don't have time, but happy to talk in another meeting about offsetting. We stay away from offsetting, but we do want people to invest in projects elsewhere to help other people turn their tap down. And so, there's a whole range of projects that you can do to help other people turn their tap down. But when we do that, we don't count it on my lifetime carbon balance because it's their carbon that I'm helping to turn down. My tap is still doing its thing and my tons are still floating around up in the atmosphere. And that's one of the differences between what we do and offsetting. Whereas offsetting says, oh, well, I help someone else reduce their emissions by 100 tons. I can count that on my balance sheet. Well, try telling that to your to your bank. You say, well, I owe you $1 million, but I built a school in Africa. So I don't have to pay you that anymore. It doesn't work. And so all of this carbon accounting stuff ties itself in knots a little bit and comes up with a lot of nonsense. So we don't do that, but we do encourage people to invest in those projects. The other way we can, if the bath is still filling up because we're all still putting our water into it, we need to take water out of the bath, right? And that's what we do with R3. And this is where we invest in projects. The tree planting projects, the soil carbon projects, the built environment projects, what we call blue carbon projects, which are mangroves, kelp, seagrass projects. And we select projects from partners that we know, and we've done a due diligence process on to know that they're really doing what they say they're doing. They establish forests, they just don't plant trees. They do put biochar in the soil, and that does improve the life of the farmers who do it. So we've chosen a series of projects and we're bringing more on board to be able to say to our individual members, we've got about 160 individual members, and I think we've got so far 9 companies come on board. We just started earlier this year. It's growing. You can invest in these projects and we can put our hand on our heart and say, we know they're good people doing great work. And the last action, the I action, is inspire others to take the journey with you. Because if it's just us, we're not going to make it. We need to create a ripple. And that's why we call it the pond foundation. When you drop a stone in a pond, it makes the ripple. So that's the RRI actions. Next slide, please, Jakob. But to do all this, and we're not there yet, we do need a reliable way to store data and to prove that the actions have happened. And this is where I think that the blockchain, Cardano's blockchain, can be hugely powerful. The blockchain can store everyone's lifetime carbon balance. That's your balance. And each year, your actions can add to it because we're still emitting, right? We can lower it, we can reduce it through our R1 actions, but we're still emitting. And it can log the RRI actions that people take. Well, I'm investing in these trees. I'm reducing my emissions here. I'm investing in this biochar project to get carbon back into the soil. And it can verify actions in the field, which we've heard about with the berry tree project, for example, actually verifying that not only do the trees get planted, but they survived and they grew and they became forests. So this is where I think that the blockchain can be really helpful. And it gives us the transparency of what's happening and the traceability of where our money's gone to. So, we're very, we're only just getting going and working, closely and talking a lot with Yoram. We're realizing that, getting these projects on the blockchain is really valuable and important. And this is what we want to do. So next slide, please. Almost done. And I think that if we did that, we can inspire that trust and cooperation to do more. And so once people know that their action counts, I truly believe that they do more and they get excited about it. Once you've taken that first step and you're a bit cynical about it, but you'll learn that the trees were planted and that the birds and the animals are coming back and the community are benefiting from those trees, you'll start feeling pretty good about that. You'll say, oh, well, I'll do some more about that because I know through the blockchain, I've got verifiable evidence that this is actually happening. And so I think this is how we get it. We get the wheel spinning, right? we bring more people to it. And when people go to dinner and they say, well, I'm investing in these projects on the Cardano blockchain, and we've done X, Y, and Z. Oh, we never knew about that. And before you know it, you're starting a ripple. And then you get companies involved. And then they've got bigger footprints. They've got bigger investments to make. And this is what we're doing. We've got, as I say, we've just had a large North American financial services company come on board. Can't announce it yet. We're still working at the lifetime carbon balance. But this is pretty exciting. They've got a lot of work to do to take their carbon out of the atmosphere. And that's how I think we inspire people to come on board. And we get to that most important transformation, because that's what we need. We need nothing less than a global transformation for us to deal with climate change. I think there's the last slide, is really just to say, oh, there it is. It's been at the bottom of all of the slides. You know, we exist to change the way the world acts on climate. And I think that we can do that if we can inspire people to come together and cooperate and trust the data that they're seeing. And that'll unlock the actions that they need, that we need as a planet, to move the needle on carbon emissions. So yeah, thanks very much for the opportunity to share that with you.
Thank you very much, Scott. Very, very interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think part of the thing we're trying to do in Cardano for Climate is how we can bring also people outside of the blockchain world that are dealing with climate change and bring them into the blockchain, right? I mean, that because of what you mentioned. So that's part of the missions, basically, of what we are working on. Thank you very, very much, Scott, for this presentation. Now, Scott spoke a lot about action. So, Allison, where is Allison?
I am
Let's do
here.
some action.
Yes, first of all, what an amazing privilege to follow an inspiring speaker like Scott, as well as Raz and Christian. A big thank you to both of you. And I hope everybody on the call is fired up to say, okay, so what can we do? What can we do to change the way the world acts on climate change? So Jakob, if you could bring up the call to action, it's time to talk about what a fun way that we're hoping to inspire and challenge everybody to play a small part in preventing climate change. So on the following slides, we have some actions, and we are challenging you to take one of those actions, or feel free to come up with your own. So if you could move to the next slide, the first two actions that you can engage in are both Cardano blockchain sustainability projects. So Veritree has been mentioned a couple of times. And Open Litter Map is another amazing Cardano ecosystem project to reduce litter. So take a look at those two projects. Think about if those are things that you personally could do. Or on the next slide, we have a number of other actions that we're challenging each individual person that they could do. So maybe you could avoid buying any plastic water bottles and carry your own reusable water bottle. Maybe you could avoid using a car for any trip under a mile, which for those of us living in the rest of the world is 1.6 kilometers. Maybe you could eat more locally grown food. Maybe you could eat regenerative proteins, which is a topic I'm just learning about. I'll post a link in a minute with a YouTube video about what regenerative proteins are. Maybe you could practice fasting. Maybe you could wash your clothes using only cold water. Maybe you could turn down the heat in the winter. Maybe you could use public transportation, compost food scraps, take only cold water showers, yikes. Or be creative, come up with your own action, whatever you can think of that you personally can do, because we all can do small things. And if we all do small things together, like Scott just said, we'll turn down our taps and collectively reduce the water, the greenhouse gases that we're putting into the environment. So what's our challenge to you? So come up with your action, figure out what you individually are going to do from this list or from your own creativity. Take a photo or a screenshot, tag it with No Planet B, and post the photo and your wallet address into the Cardano for Climate Telegram channel. And if you post your wallet address, we're going to collect the wallet addresses from everybody who participates. And please, no cheating. Don't come up with 15 different accounts. Actually, having said that, feel free to cheat. Come up with 15 different accounts and come up with 15 different individual actions that you can do. Post them all in our channel. You can enter as many times as you want, because that's more action that we're taking to reduce climate change. And in fact, tell your friends, anybody is welcome to participate. You don't even need to have a wallet address to participate, but if you post your address, we will randomly draw one of those addresses live in our next conference. And we'll send a special Cardano NFT to that address as a token of our appreciation and as a way to motivate you to take action, to work together to help reduce climate change. And one final call to action. If you didn't hear us already talking about the snails in the background, which is the Cardano for Climate special mascot, we would welcome anybody who's interested in helping to amplify our message to freely use the snail, which is a special image personally from Melanie that she's letting the group use, that use it as your background image and help amplify the message of Cardano for Climate. So thank you, and I will turn it back to Yoram.
Thank you, Allison. No, it goes to Melanie now. Please.
And Yoram flows into Melanie, and then it goes back to Yoram, and then into Jakob. And it's just this smooth ride between us. So, wow. I knew this was going to be good. I had no idea how good this would turn out. So Scott, thank you for that. I got a sneak peek at Raz's information yesterday about the 97%. 97% of the funded proposals in Catalyst are doing something already. So it's not like we have to flip entirely what we're doing. We do have to turn down the taps drastically to make up for all the stuff that we haven't done. My carbon footprint is larger than most of yours because I've been around the moon a few more times. But yeah, anyways, with that interruption, I am going to hand this back over to Jakob. We've got some very interesting breakout rooms. They've shifted a little bit. We have Jakob, take it over.
Thank you, Melanie. So yeah, we have some different breakout rooms about some interesting topics and some cool projects who are going to share a bit what they're working on. And I mean, we heard how much potential there is in Catalyst, and now I think we might see some of that and interact in interesting conversations. So first up, we have a breakout room about the topic of circular economy, and Sean is going to talk about that. So Sean, might you share a word or two? Wait.
And that will also depend on whether or not Sean is here.
Ah,
because of the time mix-up. Is he here?
Yeah.
I thought I saw him, so.
He popped in for a little bit and back out. Let's leave that for now. We do have other hosts. We did have a survey people had signed up for. Jakob, maybe you can mention that too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we originally had a survey and asked if people wanted to participate to make it kind of all open source, that everybody who wants to have a voice can have them and show what they have been doing. And another project that is going to lead a room is going to be the WADA collective. So we have Antonia here and Caroline and maybe some more, I'm not sure. We're going to do the financing projects with high social and environmental impact. Originally, there would be also Robert, but I didn't see him so far. He didn't respond anymore. So Antonia, could you say a word or two what that room is about?
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much. Really happy to be here. Yeah, so financing projects with high social impact is really about using Cardano's liquidity to deploy it in real assets that actually make the world a better place. And yeah, we think it's actually the ideal Cardano and blockchain is the ideal way to actually finance these projects, because you can have borderless flows of money, and you can also have a governance that is really that everyone can really take part in, and where it's really an inclusive way to fund and to make projects. So yeah, we'll talk about the topic in general and also talk about WADA Collective. So please join us. I think it's going to be great.
Cool, Antonia. Thank you. And next up, we have the regenerative agriculture room, and Tyler is going to give us an introduction there. So Tyler, what is a regenerative agriculture room about?
Thank you, Jacob. Can everybody hear me? Cool. So I'm just gonna read through my little pitch here. Here it goes. We don't have a choice. If we want our kids and grandkids to eat, we must bite the bullet and start eating foods that are delicious, agree with our bodies, and connect us to the life around us. Regenerative systems are wildly diverse and complex, but the basic idea is that when we work with nature, not against nature, everyone wins. There's plenty here to derive surplus while caring for the natural systems that support all of life. As a farm transitions from industrial to regenerative, its reliance on fossil fuels drops precipitously. The soil goes from net carbon emitter to powerful carbon sink. When a barren landscape goes green, it exhales oxygen, but also water, helping surrounding areas become green carbon sinks themselves. And the profit motive is there. The regenerative sector is set to take off, but in my opinion, we need better financing than VCs alone can provide and sounder money than the dollar. This is where Cardano comes in and where we come in, with tech that can push power to the edges, connect people beyond borders, and grow networks of interreliance big enough to internalize externalities, to name just one thing. We're here to plant the Cardano flag inside the regenerative sphere and simultaneously plant the regenerative flag inside of Cardano. And with your help, everyone will win. Even Monsanto execs have grandkids. So hope to see you in there.
That sounds really cool. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
And then we have a breakout room about collaborating with Cardano for Climate and the impact of the Cardano blockchain on sustainability or climate change. So, Joram.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just join us if you want to hear more what we are doing and see how you can be part and how you can help or share ideas. Yeah, just join us there, please.
Cool. And then Tivo already started 1 hour earlier with a professor of Ghana and about climate, as he does climate science, about creating high quality proposals. So, but Tivo, can you maybe share a bit what you've talked about and what you could provide?
Yeah, so since we started already with a different proposal and the professor won't be here to continue with us, what we used to create these proposals is a process what I have been practicing with community members for several months now, where we in some weekends come together and or in after town halls put our minds into it and think like what problem we want to solve, what kind of proposal we want to create, and then together with this like thinking, okay, how to start, I have devised like a process with questioning, guiding questions to create, to ideate on the proposal itself. And if you go through the process, you will end up with enough information to get the proposal on the idea scale, which has all the required information that the community advisors see it and like, oh, they understand it, the voters see it and understand it. It has been totally, I have made 6 proposals. Right now, I only have been like following my own proposals, but this fund around everybody who has joined and started creating these proposals with me, like accepting my help in a sense. I've been start following them. So, but for now, my statistics are 6 proposals, 5 of them are funded, and all of them are over 5 stars, 4 stars. And yeah, I guess it would be nice maybe to share the overview of that process and give some more insight and answer some questions. How could you use it and in the breakout room?
Really cool, Tivo. Thank you. And for the last breakout room, we have a climate challenge proposal. So, Simon.
Yeah, so this group here started last fund with Melanie posting a proposal, a challenge proposal to guide Catalyst into the into sustainable direction. And we don't want to stop here. We don't want to stop now. We didn't get funded last time, unfortunately, but we will. We have submitted another proposal already, and this is, I think, your chance to not just write into the comments, but also engage with us and shape the proposal with us together.
So thank you for being part of this until this moment. We are going to open now the breakout rooms. Make sure after you left the breakout rooms to join into our Wednesday meetings. We have a meetup link here and join. And also we have all the social media information, etc. down below to follow and to be updated for the next conference, etc. And to join a breakout room, you just click in the bottom right corner and then you just select the breakout room you would like to go to, and you can just hop around depending on how much you like it. And
Jakob,
if you have any question?
One second, please. I think also we spoke. I don't know, Christian, you're here with us still? Yeah. We can do the SPO, yeah, the SPO rooms if people still have questions or want to share ideas.
You know what? I'd rather join some of these fantastic groups. You know, yeah, I think you have too many options. You know.
Okay, so people will be able to reach out with questions to Christian directly through the contact details, and he will provide more information. And yeah, and please join us to the other rooms.